But really, I really want you to think about this. The relationships in your life. How many people around you have elevated views of themselves that don't match reality?
Who around you has an ego? Let's be really honest about it, because remember, these people are very good at pretending they aren't arrogant.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode, number 1096, One Thing Success Won't Fix. Today, for episode number 1097, happy Saturday. What's your relationship with ego? I had a client recently, Alan. She said to me, well, I'm either the student or I am the teacher, and I find it very hard to figure out where all that fits together. And I said, well, let me just offer a potential reframe. What about the guide? I said, the student is one who is learning, the teacher is one who is focused on teaching, and the guide is the person who is being. And they are teaching by example. They are leading by example. People are inspired, influenced, and taking knowledge from them just by their example. And Alan and I just had kind of a breakthrough when we were looking through our past relationships and masterminds and mentors and podcast guests and podcast hosts, that there's kind of three ways to look at things. So either somebody is looking up to you, somebody is looking down on you, or somebody is looking directly across to you. So if somebody's looking down on you, they assume they're the teacher. If somebody is looking up to you, they assume they are the student. And if somebody is looking directly across, that person is a guide. Somebody who understands, I'm not better, quote unquote, than this person. I can learn something from this person, but also through the example of who I am, I can teach as well. So if we can connect that to ego in this episode, I will be very happy, because this episode is what's your relationship with ego?
That's very transparent at the end there.
Yeah.
So first, let's define what we believe ego really is.
Sure.
I think that ego is what we're referring to in this episode particularly is more the arrogant version of ego. So I'm going to go through ego for a second. Ego is a protector. That ego is who you think you are versus who you really are. That's what it is. I've talked often about the three layers. You have who you really are in the center. Then you have who you want to believe you are. And then you have who you want other people to believe you are. This episode is following the false life versus the real life. The false life is who you want others to believe you are. The real life is who you really are in the center. And Kevin and I's goal in life and on this podcast is to make all three of those layers the same, which is impossible, but we'll spend our whole life trying to do it. And so the idea here is ego in this context is essentially who you think you are is better than who you really are. And so we've all been in a room with someone who, and we've heard this quote, who thinks their shit don't stink, quote unquote. Mm. And they have inflated self-worth that was not earned. So let's just describe two people. One person works really, really hard. They study often. They show up on time. They track their habits. They are working on their own personal development. They are growing. They master their craft. They want to be good at what they do, and they focus on that daily. They're very contribution driven. They impact other people. They want to do good. They want to do good in the world. Now I'm going to talk about another person. This other person maybe deep down wants to do good in the world, but their main focus is looking good. Their primary focus is on trying to be better, but more better than, and it's not conscious. And so this person is more focused on their image and their brand and their marketing than actually having a really valuable character. In other words, who they are. This person cares more about what they buy and how they look than who they really are. The second person has a lot of ego, most likely. And I do think that every one of us has been guilty of that at times. I had a time in my life where I was focused, like I mentioned in the last episode, on the false life more than the real life. and it was deeply unfulfilling. And after 26, my car accident, I stopped doing that altogether, to a fault. Luckily, we've come up on our marketing and our packaging. But so you have this first person who really is earning success through work and merit and effort and time invested. The second person is focused on who they want to believe they are and who they want others to believe they are way more. That's ego. And that person is most likely playing what I'm now referring to as the status game, which is like, I'll give you a tiny example of status. So Kevin goes on a podcast, and the podcast is only 30 episodes in. And we have 1,097 episodes.
You take away. What are you doing? Trying to bring us all the way back. I can't go back.
Yeah, right. It's my subconscious trying to sabotage us.
Some of the hardest times for us, the 197.
Can't have any status. It's funny. Yeah, it was brutal. So Kevin comes on a show, and he has 1,097 episodes of the Next Level University podcast, and we've worked really, really hard and earned it every single day for the last 5.5 years to be better podcasters, and that's been a primary focal point for us. Okay, we weren't doing it for the cars and the clothes and the homes. We were doing it to be better, and we were doing it to help people, and we were mastering our craft every single day. And yes, we still value cars, clothes, and homes, but it's not the reason we're doing it. Another podcaster, and this has happened to Kevin before, this has happened to me before as well, gets on and they're playing the status game. They're talking about all the stuff they've done and the businesses they've started, and they're puffer fishing. So they're puffing themselves up to make themselves look better than they really are, because what the truth is they're insecure that we are leagues ahead of them. Okay? And so when you're insecure, you either puff up and make yourself look bigger and better than you really are, and we all know people like that, or you shell up and you hide and you stay small because small means you're safe. And so in this episode, in this context, we're going to talk a little bit more about the pufferfish. But one of the things I realized while you were talking, Kev, is that I don't think that I love to be the student. I've always tried to pick people's brains. I always ask people questions. You'll notice if we ever have guests on this show, I'm so eager to learn from them. And quite frankly, and I'm just going to be very transparent about this, in hindsight, there have been many people in my past who I should not have been learning from. I was ahead of them.
Myself included.
I appreciate
at points.
That.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I don't want. It would be a real shame if I let you. I don't want to say blame other people. Like if I wasn't added in that context, it would be a shame. So I must take responsibility there.
I appreciate it, man.
Of course.
And that's on me as well. And I want everyone out there, the value of this episode, I want you to ask yourself, like, who around you has an ego? Let's be really honest about it, because remember, these people are very good at pretending they aren't arrogant. You got to be very careful. And the second piece of this is, are you being a student when you shouldn't? That's the question I want everyone to ask themselves. And I cannot even remotely pretend to be an expert in this. I think that I spent a lot of my life being a student, which I'm grateful for the fact when you're always a student, you learn a ton. So that's one thing I'll say is you just learn so much about everything. Problem is you also learn stuff that's not true. You end up finding out later that a lot of the advice you got or took was wrong. And then more importantly, you leave the room with less status. That's the weird thing. I never knew. I always said the quote, this is what I always said, the greatest master is the one who's the most excited to be the student. Turns out when it comes to status and people looking up to you, that is not true. That is not true. And so, Kevin's told me since the beginning, he's like, Alan, if you drove a nicer car to your speeches, you'd be valued more. And he's like, I wish it wasn't that way, but it is that way. Yep. And on my last speech, I was at a high school, Worcester Academy. And I drove and I pulled up in my 2008 Subaru. And I remember thinking, and I'm dressed nice and I'm giving a speech on how to become a successful podcaster, which when it comes to how to do that, I know that I know, right? There's a lot of stuff I don't know. That is not one of them, right? So I know my value in that arena. And I'm sitting there like, if anyone saw me right now pull up in this Subaru, I would take a cred hit. Because obviously I'm not that quote unquote successful if I'm driving a 2008 in their mind. But the real reason I'm driving a 2008 is because we invest back in our business instead of in my car. Which, by the way, I got to get the muffler fixed again.
Oh, come on. Just paid $1,000.
I'm joking, man.
Yeah, he's not.
There is a little. No, I'm not. There's like a little. Yeah, exactly. There's like a little ruffle going on. I'm not sure. I'm going to take it over to Bliss Motors. We're going to be fine. But the point I'm making here is that walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, looks like a duck. It's probably a duck. I tell the story about how, here's a last example. When a police officer is in uniform, picture the last time you saw a police officer in uniform, fully in uniform, with a gun at their hip. Think about the way in which you operate around them versus that same person in like jammies.
I'm in my jammies right
now. Yeah, exactly. It's not the same.
Yep.
And so you just have to understand this and make sure that you're not a guy, or you're not a teacher when you shouldn't be. You're not a student when you shouldn't be. And you're a guide in your own life, and that you're actually walking your talk. That's my primary focal point, is like, I've been asking myself a lot lately. I have 27 items in my PPT now because I just want to make sure I'm walking my talk. I need to make sure I'm walking my talk. I have to in everything. And that's challenging, but that's it. That's all I've got.
When I think of ego, I think ego is the distance between the reality and the perception of one.
Yep.
I think that's probably the best way, because even if we're talking about insecurity or protector, it's because you think you're worse than you are. So your self-belief or your vision of self is not aligned with reality. And that's why we always say 5. That's what 5 is. 5 is you understanding, like, I'm pretty good at this, but I'm not really good at this. It's accuracy.
Yeah.
I think ego is lack of accuracy between capability and reality. So
100%.
I'll put that out there as the definition.
Can you tell a story when someone had a huge ego, anonymously, so that our listeners can really understand this? I want them to be able to see when this is happening, because this is happening way more than they think.
I mean, do you think the story I told you about yesterday is a good one?
Definitely.
From the podcast host? This is great because it's literally two sides of the coin. I had one of the best experiences from a podcast, and not one of the worst, but one that I feel dirty. I know I experience ego when my ego flares because I'm trying to match. It's either that or I go docile and I let them look down on me. It's this weird energetic thing, to Alan's point. So yesterday I went on a show, and
did you tuck your tail?
No, less than ever. To the point where after I was like,
I might have. No,
I hope I didn't. I hope I wasn't too much on that episode. Like, I hope that wasn't bad I just hope it wasn't a bad look.
For our brand.
Literally, like, after that, I was like, I hope that wasn't a bad look for the brand.
Yeah.
So the host, during the show, there wasn't a lot of ego. The host definitely challenged me a few times. Like, we were talking about entitlement and whether or not feedback is a good thing. Like, we were talking about how I had a call with a client recently, and he said, yeah, my son just had a baseball game. And I said, oh, who won? And he's like, they don't keep score. And that's the first time I've ever had somebody say that to me. And I was thinking, it was like, okay, I understand that if you want to build confidence in somebody, maybe them losing every game or striking out every time is not good. But on the other end, if you don't face losses, you don't necessarily have to look in the mirror, and then you might end up being entitled. And it was just an interesting perspective, right? So I think there's positive and negatives to both ends. So we had a conversation about that live, and on the show, it wasn't super bad. I could tell that this person had more of an ego than I did, intuitively, because I could tell that the person...
Meaning they were more inaccurate about their view of self.
I believe so.
Yeah, okay.
And or inaccurate about their view of me, which would create inaccuracy in their view of themselves, which is a whole nother freaking thing we could go down. So we get to the end of the interview, and I knew this was going to happen. I was certain this was going to happen. This happens on every podcast, but it doesn't always go the same way. After you do a podcast, the host will hit off, and you won't be recording, and something will happen. It'll either be, thanks so much for coming on. It'll be, can I pick your brain about podcasting? It'll be, what do you have exciting coming up? How can I help you? It can be a lot of different things. With this person, afterwards, he was like, so let me look into a little bit about what you're doing. And he's like, Next Level University, huh? what's your thing? What's that all about? and it was like, this is what's gonna happen. Okay?
Damn it. Yeah. Okay.
This is how it's gonna happen.
Let me get under the hood.
Yeah.
Of your
let me
car,
see what you guys are doing.
Let me see what you're about. It's like you probably should research me before the interview, but either
definitely.
Way. Yeah.
But and watch, because you will probably sense a little bit of ego from me when I'm telling the story, because my natural reaction used to be go docile and like just either freeze or fawn.
Yeah.
And you can go into those more after. Now it's fight. It's like, all right, let's do it. You want to do it? Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm ready. I'm here. I'm here for it. So, and this is how it happens. The person was like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard are you grinding? And I was like, I don't know where this is coming from. I said
weird
10.
Question.
It was weird.
This going?
Weird.
Where's this going?
I said 10. 10 out of 10. Do you know why?
Hey, how much money do you make? It's funny, man.
Do you know why, though? Because I think one of this person's businesses might be helping people become more successful without the overwhelm or something.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think he was trying to get me as a client.
Yeah,
on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard do you grind? I said 10. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I work every day. I said, for context, I did 90 shows in 30 days. And he's like, what? And I said, yeah, man, I'm not playing the same game. And I don't mean that with ego. I'm not playing the same game. I said, you got to understand, man, a lot of people, and no offense, because I think this is kind of what you're doing, a lot of people start podcasts. I didn't say that.
I know. I didn't say that. You should have.
I should have. A lot of people start podcasts because they just want to network, or they like hearing themselves talk, or they just want to see what it's about. I said,
They probably just want to get you on there as a client.
Probably.
You know what I mean? Like, honestly.
Probably.
Hey, how hard do you grind? You know what I mean? It's like,
but
what about this service that makes
not
it
why
so you can win with very little effort?
That's not why we started. And
exactly.
I tried to make it abundantly clear to this person that, like, look, I'm not... This, for me, because he said that. He's like, well, the podcast is a great way to meet people. I know that. I know that's why you're doing it. That's not why I'm doing
for
it.
That
that's not why I'm doing it. And we get to the end, and he's like, what can I do to help you? Like, who can I introduce you to? But it's
you
not...
should have said, Kev. I'm being playful on this. I'm sorry, but this gets me fired up. You should have said, is it? You know what I mean? Is it? Does that work? You know what I mean? 1,097 episodes in. Is it really?
He didn't know that. He didn't know that until I told him.
Oh, he didn't know that.
No.
Oh, so he was inaccurate about it. Oh, so he didn't know how far ahead you were. He must have known on the episode.
Maybe.
I mean, I even tell Emilia sometimes, we do events together, we're on a podcast together. I can tell. I mean, I just have more reps.
Yeah.
So it's like playing basketball with someone who's done 1,097 versus, a couple hundred. It's not of equal skill set. And okay, I see you. So he didn't research you at all.
No, that's part of the thing. And that's okay. Like, I'm okay with, if your show it's just a conversation. I'm totally okay with that. That's fine. I enjoy that. You don't need to know who I am.
Right.
Like, you don't need to know. That's fine.
But if he did, it would have changed everything. That's the thing. It's like, imagine there's this scene in Troy. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole.
Here we go.
Hey guys, my name is Laura and I was a member of group number 2, which was called Gratitude with Attitude. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my experience with group coaching. I was, over a period of 3 months, we were guided by Kevin and Alan and encouraged to express ourselves without the fear of being judged. So they were very supportive. They are very knowledgeable. They are very, very understanding, and they just provided this safe space for us to be ourselves. And there was an amazing culture of support among all the members of the group, and you are given the opportunity to take as much as you wanted from the experience, participate as much as you wanted or as little as you wanted, and all of it was done in a very, very safe and confidential space. So you really, really have the opportunity to really grow. And to be honest, if it hadn't been for the opportunity to be in group coaching, I would not be able to have the courage to be recording this video right now. So please don't let the opportunity pass you by, because it will be the money best invested in your own personal growth. So don't wait, just do it.
Here
All
we
right,
go.
everybody,
Yeah.
get your
Is this-
popcorn and your Diet Pepsi ready. Get comfortable. We're going to do an Alan movie minute.
Alan movie minute. One of my favorite movies is Troy, even though most people don't like it. I think it's and it's interesting because Emilia's favorite book growing up was the Iliad, which is a Greek mythology. Anyways, which is what Troy was built off of. So there's this scene where they're going to get Odysseus. Odysseus is the king of Ithaca. I know. Here we go. So Odysseus is the king of Ithaca. It's actually Boromir from Lord of the Rings. You never saw Lord of the Rings, so it doesn't matter. Sean Bean, the UK actor. You know him?
I know who Sean Bean is, yeah.
Okay.
You're going to say Sean William Scott. That I can assure you it wasn't him.
It was not him. So these emissaries are coming to get King Odysseus to join the war. And he pretends not to be king. He's pretending to just be some guy with his dog. And they eventually find out, and essentially they're walking away. Like, hey, do you know where the king is? And he like insults him. And they're like, hey, you shouldn't insult your king or whatever. And then as they're walking away, he says, well, I hope Agamemnon's emissaries or soldiers are better than his emissaries or something like that, because they didn't notice that he was actually the king. So they obviously weren't that smart. And that whole thing. But after that, they immediately were like, oh, are you King Odysseus? Like that we've heard so much about, blah, blah, blah. The point is your reputation precedes you.
Yeah.
If people think you're a nobody, they're going to treat you like a nobody. It sucks, but it is true. I just wanted to give that insight. And that's why he treated you that way, is because he doesn't actually know. Yeah. And that also goes to show you some people suck, honestly.
Well, I'm not saying that. I don't want that to be the takeaway for this.
I know.
Because it's not necessarily... It's a weird dynamic where this person didn't have me on because of our podcast success, where some people do. You know, some people like look up to, this is the thing, some people look up to us and they want to learn more.
But you know how some people treat you well until proven otherwise? And then other people, it's like you have to prove yourself to them before they treat you well. I think he's one of those people.
I would agree.
And that's when I said some people suck, that was harsh. But what I mean is that I like to treat people really well, and then if they show me that they're not a good person, then of course I'm gonna go my separate ways. But some people really need, it's like you have to prove yourself to them type of thing. And that's all I'm saying is I think a lot of our listeners struggle with that in particular.
Yeah.
You know those people that are really entitled that think they're awesome? Like that. You got to be careful. I just want our listeners to be careful of people like that, because it's happening to them. Usually people who deflate themselves and who have low self-confidence and low self-worth, usually it's because they were around someone who had inflated self-confidence and inflated self-worth. Usually it's an overcorrection. And I want our listeners to be looking out for people like this guy. That's all. So
it's very energetic. I think you can tell energetically. That's the best way to put it, because at the end, I knew I broke rapport. I was looking for it. I was like, let me see where this break in rapport comes. And it was very much at the end where he said, what can I do for you? And I said, nothing. That was like, boop, break in rapport of usually people. And this is the other thing too. I know enough about like the law of reciprocity to know, like, if I ask you for something, you can then ask me for something, and I'm indebted to you in some way, shape, or form energetically. Yeah. Like, I know that as well. So I'm not even going to appease the fact that you want me to ask you for help, because there's layers. There's too many layers to it. Mm-hmm. But when that happened, he was like, okay. And that was kind of the end of, now we're going to sign off, and this is going to be the end of the conversation, and you and I most likely will never speak again. Now, I think I have a pretty good radar for that at this point, because my relationship with ego, I cannot stand people who have elevated egos. It bothers me. I tell the story all the time of when I used to work at the hospital and I was cleaning floors and toilets and rooms, how I got looked down on so much by the doctors and the nurses. But it was like, I understand in this category, in this arena, you are ahead of me. But intrinsically as a human being, and again, it's dark. If we were down to the last air tank and the world was ending, we'd see who was the real human being. And I might lose. I'm not saying I'd win every time, but
you never know that some doctors might do mixed martial arts on the side.
That's true. That's true. I know many that do. But I'm just saying it's one of those things of like, their perspective of self is inaccurate. In that regard, maybe you're the best doctor in the world. That's great. I love that. And
You
props
save
to you.
lives. You literally
Right.
save lives. So,
Props to you. So
good-
like in the
props to you.
hospital,
Yeah.
I understand in the hierarchy,
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily as valuable. Totally fine. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean intrinsically you can treat me like garbage.
Of course, man.
So that part,
Same.
I've had that for a long time. I've recognized that. So fast forward to an interview I had after that, same day, yesterday, and this got rescheduled because the person who booked it ended up making a mistake because he lives in England and there's a time difference and all that. And he was like, "I am so sorry that I made a mistake booking it. Like, thank you so much for rescheduling." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Low self-worth. This is going to be probably somebody who
Yeah.
has a lower level of self-worth just due to the amount of apologizing."
Yeah.
And I have such a soft spot for people like that because that's me. That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Some people with ego would look down on this person and say, "Oh, I'm
know.
better than you. You're
Instead of you actually look at them higher.
I
so
look
do I.
directly. I try to look directly across,
Right.
and I try to lift them up.
But them being so kind like that was actually a credibility. That was a cred build for you.
Yeah.
For me, it would have been too.
Yeah.
But for other people, I realize I'm doing that, and it's making it seem like I
right.
am less than. I
Because
I
you're
now
doing
understand.
it. You're doing it to people who aren't truly humble.
I finally am starting to understand this. I don't think I've ever been good at what we're talking about right now.
I
Straight
think
up.
it's just social
So I
dynamics.
just want to say that. Yeah.
I really think that's what it is.
Same.
So I was like, "Dude, you're good. No worries. Like, no worries at all. I checked out your show. You're awesome. I love what you're talking about. Like, you're good. Don't worry, man. It happens all the time. I make mistakes. If I made a mistake every episode, 1,100 mistakes later, I've learned a lot of lessons." And he starts laughing. He's like, "Oh, awesome, man. Awesome. Thanks so much. I appreciate it." And then we're talking about how the interview is going to go. And it was just very clear to me that this is a good human being with a good heart. And my goal was to elevate him. Now, we get to the end of, now this is interesting. We get to the end of the call and I was like, "I want to do a free call with you. 100% I want to do a free call with you because I want to help you with your podcast." I said, "It's not a sales call. I just want to add value."
Yeah.
And he's like, no, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Come on, no. And I was like, "No, I really want to do it. I'm not just saying this. I had an interview earlier. I'm not going to offer the guy a free call. I don't like him. He doesn't. I don't want to help him. I just don't want to help him. I want to do this."
We don't
I
need
said,
more of that guy.
"No, we
Right?
don't.
Yeah.
I will have a link to you by this weekend. I will send you a link via email. Book whenever you can, and you and I will jam." But think of that. My relationship with ego, I do not desire to help ego. I don't
same.
desire to necessarily be the person who level sets them. For me, and maybe this is cowardly, I don't know. For me, I just kind of deuce on out. I'm like, "Oh, see you later. I got to go." With
Yeah.
somebody who is below 5 and somebody who is turtle shell, I am attracted to that. And again, there's a fine line.
Well, you want to help them
I want to help them because that was me.
recognize their value.
That was me and is still me. I mean, I think my self-worth is as close to 5 as it's ever been, which I'm grateful for. But
I can tell by the humdinger you threw me on this episode. I'm kidding.
what did I throw you?
You didn't. I'm joking. Yeah, you did.
You got nervous.
Dude, I'm literally kidding. I'm
See?
sorry.
Back down. Back
Right
down to
back.
3.
Yeah. I wanted to demonstrate in real time the rope-a-dope,
But
It's
really, I really want you to think about this. The relationships in your life. How many people around you have elevated views of themselves that don't match reality? That there's ego there. And when you get like the dirty feeling after you see somebody, maybe it's ego. Maybe they have ego and you don't like being around ego. Or if you feel like you're not resonating on the same frequency, that's what I find. Even during a podcast, somebody who has ego, I find that I'm trying to like find the level. Like, where
know.
is this supposed to be?
Where's the resonant? Yeah, you know how you're on the same wavelength, that quote, or on the same page? It's like that's why I think people elevate and inflate or deflate is because they're trying to, I think it's a control thing. You're trying to like either be on the same page and peers, or you're trying to be student teacher, or you're trying to be teacher student.
Yeah.
And I think you have to understand which of those three you're in.
Well, it's hard
Are you-
too not to break rapport. That's
Very
the thing
much.
is if somebody is vibrating in a certain, resonating in a certain wavelength, and you know that, what are your options? You either match or
Yep.
you stay where you are. And if you stay where you are, it might not be a good conversation. It might not flow. It's interesting. And we're going very deep.
Or
in this
you
episode.
try to show that you're actually vibrating higher than they are, or
Yeah.
you knock them down, which you don't. You and I don't like to stoop to that level ever,
No.
unless they're doing it to us, in which case we don't mind throwing a little jab. This is the most challenging thing for me. These dynamics, because I'm so comfortable in the student role. I had this moment, Kev. One of the reasons why I love coaching is because I actually finally get to vibrate in my own awareness. It's almost like it's kind of like a little bit of a Band-Aid, because I don't have to fight for the coaching hat at all, because you wouldn't pay me. You're literally paying me for my awareness. Let me share my awareness with you. They're coming in as students, so I don't have to do this dynamic thing. But from now on, I am going to be very, very diligent at this. We've had people in the past where Kev has come behind the scenes and said, Alan, like, we can't work with that person anymore. I'll share this briefly. I know we got to go. One time, Kevin had a guy call me up. He said, Alan, this guy, he's going to call you. I think he might be a client. I had a conversation with this guy, and for those of you who are out there watching or listening, like, picture like some dude on a golf course who just like loves himself and just spends all day, every day, like making money and doing golf, like that kind of person. Okay, whatever. If I'm not trying to be judgmental here, but this guy sucks. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I don't like this man at all. So, anyways, he calls me up, and in the middle of the conversation, I'm sitting there like, okay, because he's like, why should I work with you? Like, why you, man? Like, prove yourself to me. Like, prove yourself to me. And I got triggered, and I get to this point where I'm like, you called me. You're trying to work with me. Why are you even calling me? Like, I don't want anything to do with this. So I call Kevin afterwards, and I'm like, Kev, please never ever put me on the phone with another man like that. Yeah. I can't be around it. And so, to your point, Kev, and to our listeners, I want you to become hyper conscious, acutely aware of when there's ego. You are being influenced by ego. We are telling you this because we care. Don't get influenced by things that are fake. That's our goal. Like, be very careful of this weird, icky status game that we all have to play. Just remember, if someone pulls up next to you in a car and they're in a police vehicle and they're in full uniform, you're going to assume that's a police officer. What if it's actually a burglar who stole the car and stole the uniform? That is what people are doing all the time. And I just don't want people to get hoodwinked anymore. When we were kids, when we were young, we got hoodwinked. I have so many clients who were getting hoodwinked by their partners, by their fathers, by people in the world, by their bosses. There's so many bosses that treat people like crap. Yeah. And it made Kevin and I very upset. And in a way, we overcorrected, and now we're just overly like, no, it's okay. It's like, and now we're trying to find five with it. But my point is that just be very hyper-conscious of this. Are you the student? Are you the teacher? Or are you the guide? And what is this other person trying to be? Because what you'll notice is most people who have ego are trying to always be the teacher, which, by the way, if you're always the teacher, how much do they really know? Mm. They don't know a lot because they're very rarely the student. You see? So it's a positional status thing, and I want nothing to do with it, but we all have to play this game, unfortunately.
And that's, I believe, at a deep level, why we have mostly women or humans who identify as women who listen to this show. Or if we have men or humans who identify as men in that role, I would say you're probably very, very humble.
Definitely.
You're not.
That's what I've found.
Yeah. Sure. If you listen to the show, you're not ego-driven. Because if you were, you wouldn't like us. You would say, like, I don't like these two guys.
I know.
Simple. And I'm so grateful for that. I did a summit yesterday, and it was, I think everybody there it was women, or humans who identify as women, and I got a lot of really good feedback of, like, everybody felt what you were talking about. Like, well, yeah, that's who I'm used to talking to. I'm used to talking to people who don't have egos. So when I start talking to people who do, I struggle. We have had interviews with people that are very high level who had egos, and we were like, this isn't good for the world. We're not gonna air it. And these people have been on all the shows, Tom, Bill, you, all of them. They've been on the big shows. And we said, we're not going to do that because that's not, number one, I don't think it's...
add more to that.
No,
we don't
need
more of that. The world doesn't need more ego.
I don't think it's good for our community either.
Same.
I really don't. All right, we got to go because we're out here, Jeffin.
Yep.
Next level nation. If you are looking for a low ego, high accuracy when it comes to self-worth and self-belief, place where you can be yourself, you can meet other people, you can meet peak performance partners, who knows the relationships you may be able to build. Please join our private Facebook group, #NextLevelNation, link in the show notes.
Also, we have group coaching. Group 8 is closing in 20 days. Go to the landing page, check it out. All the information is there. Again, achieve more in 90 days than you ever have. But more importantly, you're going to leave that more self-aware. You're going to have a like-minded team of people with you. It's a ton of accountability. Right now, the WhatsApp group is on fire for Aspiration Nation. You get to pick your own team name. It really has, picture being on a sports team and how fun that was and how much you got better and exercised consistently. Picture that, but for personal growth and for achieving your goals.
Next Level Nation, tomorrow for episode number 1098, a little Sunday fun day, the magic penny riddle and what it means for you. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. We are grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you for tuning into us. I genuinely believe we have the best community in the world. And as always, at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
We hope you reach out.